Okay, we're going to tie a California mosquito. True mosquitoes have two down wings, and as a mosquito imitation, this pattern holds true to the real form. Yet Randall Kaufmann, who introduced me to this fly in his 1991 book, Tying Dry Flies, says he thinks it is more often taken as a Midge Cluster. Start this fly in the center of the hook, and I wrap halfway to the eye, and then I unwrap two wraps, and that gets me back to where I want to put my wings, just a little further back than I normally mount them. Now I've got a stiff hackle here, and I'm taking some hackle fibers off for the tail. You can see they're good stiff ones. And I'm going to take this clump and measure it against the shank. I want it to be the length of the shank when I'm all done here. And I'll spin this thread so it'll curl back onto it and make a wrap. And the second wrap, as you saw, pulled it right up on top of the hook. I'll check the length of it and then go ahead and wrap back and throw a wrap in underneath this to help the tail flare. Put my thumbnail under there and push it a little bit, spread these fibers out so they'll hold the back of that hook up. Wrap up to the front and trim off these end pieces. Wrap forward and get ready for my body and rib material. The body material is going to be this floss. It's single strand floss. Let me back this out a little bit so you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just going to cut a strand of this, set it aside, and take some Danville 210 denier Flymaster Plus, a nice bright white thread. I'm going to take a length of it, and then the two lengths, the black floss and the white thread, I'm going to fasten in and then wrap over back to the end of the body, and then bring my thread back forward and trim that. And then I'm going to tie a whip finish knot here, and I'll wrap back up onto the body a little bit because I don't want to sacrifice that space in the front, the bare hook. So I take this floss, I stroke it down, and try to get it to lay nice and flat. Tie it off. Smooth everything up, make a single wrap whip finish knot, and take my white thread, and I'm going to take a pair of hackle pliers and grab this and then spin the thread to twist it up so it gives a nice tight wrap. And it's a nice bright white thread, has real good contrast against this black floss. And here's a hen neck that I'm going to use for the hackle tip wings, or I'd like to use this one. This is an old one. See how nice and round those tips are? Well, today with the genetic breeding of all the birds, they've taken these hen necks, and the tips now are very, very pointed. And on the smaller flies especially, the tips are just too narrow, they just disappear. But I'm going to use a pair of Renzetti wing burners here, or a set of wing burners, and I'm going to burn these two feathers. You do them one at a time. You put them in between the wing burner tips, much like tweezers. Take a Zippo lighter or a Bic lighter and just burn that excess feather material that's outside of the wing burner. Stroke off any ash, and you've got a perfectly formed wing. I'm going to do another one here, and I'll try to get it so that it ends right in a black section because I like black tips on these wings. And this is a size 14 fly, and these are two perfectly formed size 14 wings, and you can do this every time with those wing burners. I like them, I use them a lot. Okay, so I'll take these two wings, I'll get this thread back up on the body where it's a flat spot. I'll use the turn and look technique to tie this on, turn and look right where I'm tying so I can make sure it's going right in the right spot. I like where these wings are sitting, and I like the angle. So I'll bend these stems up and trim them off, and then do some wrapping and try to make a nice smooth ramp to wrap my hackle on. So I'll smooth this up, still have some space there between my thread wraps and the eye, by the way. I'll take a hackle, saddle hackle feather here and trim more fibers off the bottom than the top so that when my wraps start, it starts nice and even. And I do a crisscross wrap to tie that feather on so it's sticking straight out from the hook when I start wrapping. And I just crisscrossed over that stem and then just bent it forward and wrapped over it as you saw. Tie a whip finish knot there. Grab my feather and I want this first wrap to be almost on top of those wings, right up against it. And then I just wrap forward down that nice slope I made and finish my wraps. come up behind and underneath and behind this material, make a wrap in front of it, come underneath and behind again, and a wrap in front of it, and trim that hackle off. And I missed a few fibers when I trimmed that hackle. You see them sticking out the front there. Well, I didn't notice them. So when I do this whip finish knot, they're going to stick out. They'll be very awkward looking. Normally you wouldn't notice it, but this is a 14 fly and it's small, but when you magnify them like this, it's tough to miss a mistake like this. So there's those 4 fibers sticking out there. I'm just going to take a pair of tweezers and pop them off. And believe me, you can just barely see that little bit of fiber that's sticking out of there. This would be perfectly fine for a fishing fly. So there you go. There's a California mosquito tied using rotary fly tying techniques.